Hi, this is Esty, host of the Friday A Public Affair. I hope you help us by contributing to WORT, and you can also subscribe to the podcast. Bye.
6'6" above sea level. I grab the mic because I like to take you to another mental level. Low power frequency radio modulation. The big sound from underground. Another.
No change without struggle. No one in power ain't giving up nothing. No change without struggle. No one in power.
WORT 89.9 FM, listener-sponsored community radio, Madison, Wisconsin. And hello, welcome to A Public Affair. I am Esty Dinor. I'm honored today to have with us the Reverend Professor Mitri Raheb, founder and president of Dar al-Kalima University in Bethlehem. He is the most widely published Palestinian theologian to date, and the author and editor of 50 books, including his latest, Decolonizing Palestine, The Land, the People, the Bible, which we will be talking about today. Raheb has founded several NGOs, including the Christian Academic Forum for Citizenship in the Arab World. He is founding and board member of the National Library of Palestine and a founding member of Bright Stars of Bethlehem, which is a U.S. 501c3 non-for-profit organization. And by the way, I have heard the kids from that academy singing, and that was really a pleasure. He is an elected member to the Palestinian National Council as well as the Palestinian Central Council. Thank you so much, Rev Raheb, for joining us pretty late in the evening for you from the killing fields. You are in Bethlehem. How are things there?
Yes, I'm in Bethlehem, Palestine. I mean, things are difficult. As you know, there is a genocide going on in Gaza. The situation in the West Bank is very tense as well, with very limited, movement, freedom of movement. Currently, with settlers attacking Palestinians, and also with the war on Lebanon, and we are not sure what will happen with Iran, and then the American elections. I mean, these are very, very difficult times. And we are not sure where we will be 3 months from now.
Yeah. How do you understand that really comprehensive attack on the Middle East by Israel, or really you might say by the United States through Israel, or by both of them? What do you think is going on? What are they trying to do? What is the goal here? And why now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Israel from day one has an expansionist ideology. They are addicted, if you want, to land. So they want more and more land. But the problem is that there are the native people, the Palestinians or the Lebanese in this case. And so they want to get as much from the land as possible and as little from the native people as possible. Now, after October 7th, they thought they can win the support of the Western world to drive the Palestinians in Gaza out of the region. They thought originally to Egypt. That did not work. when that did not work, like it worked in 48, for example, during the Nakba, they started bombing Gaza left and right to make life in Gaza unlivable. So that basically, I mean, by destroying 88% of the schools, 100% of the universities, the cultural sites, 33 of the 36 hospitals are out of service, etc. So that on the day after, people in Gaza will sit there. They have no schools for their kids. They have no universities functioning, no hospitals to go to. And so they, on voluntarily basis, be displaced. This is, I think, wishful thinking from Israel. Because, I mean, those who could afford to leave left already. But the majority are stuck and will be stuck there. Many will not be able to leave. So now then the third step is Israel is trying again to gain more land as a buffer zone. So they want to control the northern part of Gaza. They want to control the southern part of Lebanon, the western part of Syria, and as much as possible from the land in the West Bank through building Jewish settlements in the West Bank. That is their plan right now, and Israel felt, especially after their success in Lebanon, that maybe now is the time to complete their dream of greater Israel. And because of the US election, President Biden is a lame duck right now. And so they thought this is really the best time now to do that, because there will be no American president who will be able to confront Israel before the elections.
Yeah, so basically Israel is really trying to expand itself from the river to the sea, which has been a slogan of the settlers all along, even though here when people who support Palestine and they chant from the river to the sea, they might have the police attack them. So do you want to talk about that?
Right. I mean, this is if you want the double standard, because even Netanyahu at the UN lately, he showed a map. There was no Palestine, no West Bank, even not Gaza. And people in the US, the majority of people have no idea what river and what sea actually, we are talking about. And so when the Israel lobby says this is anti-Semite, they believe them. But when they themselves use it, again, nobody cares. There is a lot of people in the US, many of them really have no idea what's happening here. And if you only listen to if you get your news, say from CNN or from Fox News or so, I mean, you will never understand what's happening here, because the coverage of international news is limited. 1 hour, 13 minutes, usually, in the news. It's more about entertainment. And unless you go for alternative media, unless you listen to some good radio programs like yours, they will not be able to get really a real insight into what's happening.
Yeah, and yes, you're right, unfortunately. One point that you talk about quite a bit in your book is the fact that the West, anyway, seems to think that the Jews belong there, and that the Palestinians are the foreigners, and it's actually a new thing that I've been hearing only since October 7. I'd never heard before Jewish people claim that they are indigenous to that land, but that is a claim that I keep hearing. But I am not hearing that the Palestinians are. So you talk about the long history of who lived on this land and what it was called through the years, through the centuries, really. And you say that with the exception of Canaan, no other name for this land but Palestine has been used continuously for almost 2,500 years up to the present day. Tell us a little bit. Of course, we don't have time to go through everything that you talk about in your book, but give us a feel to what you write about there. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, the name Palestine was used for this land for now over 3,000 years. Jews have been always part of the people of Palestine. There was never a contradiction between being Palestinian and being Jewish. But Palestine, on the other hand, was always a diverse community. There was never, ever one religion that controlled that land. So, even in the Bible, we hear about, the Israelites and the Philistines and the Samaritans and we have today Christian Jews and Muslims. So Jews were always part of Palestine. Our problem was never with Judaism. Our problem was with settler colonialism, European settler colonialism. When Europeans actually, basically in this case the British, who colonized many parts of the world, they wanted to colonize Palestine for economic and strategic reasons. But they decided not to do it themselves, but to have subcontractors to do that. And who were the subcontractors? The European Jews. Why? Not because they loved the Jews, but because they saw European Jews as not belonging to Europe. They wanted basically to get rid of them. And so they told them, this is not your land, you don't belong here, because God gave you and promised you a land in Palestine. You go there and you serve the interest of the empire. And basically the British wanted especially the Russian European Jews that were fleeing from the pogroms that were happening in the late 19th century. They were poor Russian Jews. They didn't want to have poor Jews flooding the UK. It's like, when Trump says, we don't want immigrants from Mexico, but we would like to have immigrants from Norway and from Sweden, right? So that was exactly what the British were thinking. We don't want the poor Jews to flood the UK, so let's send them to Palestine. And what a better ideology than telling them, you know what, this is not our idea, this is God's idea. So you do ethnic cleansing, and you say it's God, it's not us. And they wanted rich British Jews to pay for the enterprise. And this is the whole thing with Lord Rothschild and the Balfour Declaration.
And so let's talk about that, the use of Bible by settler colonialists. It has happened, of course, all over the world. But and if you want to talk about that briefly, but it definitely has been used in getting Jews to come to Israel, and even more so since, and even more so right now. So let's talk about that, and then we can talk about the role of Christianity in all of that.
Yeah, settler colonialism is a very distinct form of colonialism. It's different than classic colonialism. And the difference is with settler colonialism, you have settlers going to another country with the aim of settling there for good, and not to live with the native people, but to push them out, basically to replace them. Now, to do that, they have to create a policing state. To do that, they have to declare the natives as savage, as backward, as terrorists, are uncivilized, etc. And they are the civilized people. They are the pioneers that keep pushing the frontiers, also they start seeing themselves as belonging to the land. So this is what happened in North America with the Native Americans and First Nation in Canada, basically European settlers coming, taking over the land, and then confining the natives in reservations and trying to erase their culture through schoolings, where again the church was involved, etc., etc. If you hear Netanyahu speaking today about educating the people in Gaza, this is exactly the settler ideology that we had 100 years ago in Canada, or 200 years ago in the United States, that people today in North America are repenting for doing it. But now Israel is starting now, because Israel is the last European settler colonial project. That is the last project. Mm-hmm. It was done in Africa, it was done in Australia, in New Zealand, but the last project is now in Israel. And if you see who are the countries supporting Israel right now, they are all countries with a settler colonial history.
Yeah, including, of course, the United States and its history of genocide that was very successful from the point of view of the colonialist, and of course it is the main backer and I don't know, maybe the puppet master in this case. But so let's talk about how Israel got its name, because so the UN declared that there's a new country. How did it become Israel and not, for example, Canaan or anything else?
Right. Actually, the Israeli leadership was debating what name to choose for the new state, and the main names there was Zion, for example, Herzliya, after Herzl, these kinds of names. It was really in the last days that Ben Gurion suggested Israel, and this created a problem because many people started confusing the biblical Israel with the current and contemporary state of Israel, which really drive Christian Zionists to support this state. And this is basically weaponizing, again, biblical language for political ends, which Israel has been doing all over. If you see the words, for example, that Israel used for settlements, or that Israel used for occupation, they are all taken from the book of Joshua. If you see the name of many of the weapons that Israel developed, they are biblical. most of the time. The wars, the name of the wars, for example, 6-day war, is a biblical about, God creating the world in 6 days and then he rested. And unfortunately, also, if you look at Hamas or Hezbollah, they used also religious language for their political ends. So, and this is the problem for me as a theologian, when nationalism blends with religion, it becomes very dangerous because then God is actually utilized against other people for narrow national interests, and God is much bigger than that.
Yeah. My guest is the Reverend Professor Mitri Raheb. He is, among other things, the founder and president of al-Kalima University in Bethlehem and in Gaza too. And we should talk about that too. But we're talking specifically about his latest book, Decolonizing Palestine, the Land, the People, the Bible. You're welcome to join the conversation if you have relevant questions at 608-256-2001. You can also join us on social media at Word Talk on X or A Public Affair on Facebook. And again, thank you, Mitri Raheb, for joining us at, by now it's 8:30 your time on Friday night. So I really, really appreciate you doing that. So, you started talking now about what you call genocidal theology. I don't know if that's a new term or a term that you coined, or I just missed it, but it's the first time that I hear that, but it's such a perfect term, right? It defines exactly what we're talking about. So talk about that and how the Netanyahu government is basically implementing genocidal theology right now.
Yeah, actually, when Netanyahu on October 27th announced that the Israeli troops are entering Gaza, he quoted 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3, where God is telling Saul, you go and eliminate Amalek, kill everyone, old, young, suckling, sheep, ox, women, don't leave anything, which is a genocidal theology. In fact, what I'm trying to show in the book is that the book of Joshua, if you want, is the blueprint for genocide.
Yeah, explain,
please. Because Joshua goes into Palestine, Canaan, and with God's clear instruction to eliminate the native people. And when he, at one point, tried to save few, he was actually punished by that. I mean, this is really a book in the Bible. If you take it at face value, it is about, genocidal theology. And we need to be very careful how we read this Bible. Unfortunately, Netanyahu and his generals were reading it this way. Many also of the rabbis were saying, God is giving us green light to do that because this land is only for the Jewish people. This is given to us by God, and everyone else should be either eliminated or he leaves the country or live here as a servant to us, the Jewish race. This is what several rabbis right now are actually saying loudly, and they are proud about it. I mean, this is it racism? Is it, unfortunately, but again, you have this, I mean, this is by many of those, if you look at the Israeli generals, they are mainly European. Look at their names. I mean, look at Netanyahu. I mean, just if you look at him, you know he doesn't belong here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've watched some of these videos of rabbis in Israel saying these things, which, I mean, it's absolutely shocking, but also on a personal experience recently, I somehow I didn't get on this rabbi in Milwaukee, which is not far from here. Somehow I was added to his mailing list, and I don't usually even open it because he usually just asks for money, but it was before Rosh Hashanah, and there's a genocide going on, so I wanted to see what he had to say. And so I opened the email, and the first sentence was, as the new year is coming and all these miracles are happening to Israel day after day. I mean, I get shivers up my spine as I'm just telling you about that. And I read that first sentence, and I shut it and I unsubscribed from that. But I'm like, how can people who tell us they're people of God actually, as I was reading that, I was seeing in my mind's eye kids with sharpshooters, holes in their heads, kids who have lost their limbs, and so on and so forth. That's a miracle. I mean, so you yourself are a reverend. How do you understand people who can see things this way?
Yeah, this is why I think we have the book of Joshua in the Bible to tell us that religion can be often misused, hijacked by people for their own racist, chauvinistic point of view. This happened also with religious text against women for centuries. So the Bible or religious books in general, scriptures, have been always used by people in power against those with less power. And so the good thing is here as a Palestinian, I have to say that thanks God, not all Jewish rabbis think like this. I was meeting recently with 180 Jewish rabbis over Zoom, and they are from the States, who wanted before Rosh Hashanah and before all the Jewish holidays that are coming now to hear a Palestinian Christian reading the scripture with them so that they can, discuss that in their sermons, in their synagogues. So, so it's really important to see that this is a struggle within also Judaism. For 2,000 years, Jews were reading Joshua in a different way. Never in this, or very seldom in this genocidal. And maybe because they were powerless. But now, having the power, and they want to seize the moment for genocide and utilizing the scripture, the Torah, the Tanakh for this kind of an ideology. It is sad, it's really sad, because Jewish people who experienced the Holocaust, they know exactly what it means to live with the fear to be eliminated, and now wanting to eliminate the Palestinians, the native people of Palestine, instead of sharing the land with them. This is very sad.
Yeah. Well, we have a caller for you, and then we have another question from a person who did not stay online. Adrian, you're on air.
Thank you, Esty. I think it's really interesting discussing the Middle East conflict in the context of settler colonialism. And one thing I hear a lot these days is that people want to affirm Israel's right to self-defense. And I'd like to know whether an occupying military force, and Israel's been occupying Palestine militarily since 1967, whether an occupying military force really has a right to defend itself against resistance by the occupied people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Rev Mitri.
Yeah, it is. It's a good question, actually. Yes, because, the only people who have no right to defend themselves are the Palestinians who are occupied. So basically the world is telling them, you should be happy to be occupied. You just need to surrender. And Israel, the occupying force, the seventh largest military power in the world, has to defend itself from, the Palestinian people who are, without power. But this is, this is always the settler colonial excuse. And basically to give Israel the green light to do that. Again, according to international law, to humanitarian law, to Geneva Convention, the Palestinians have the right to defend themselves. Interestingly, there was a German bishop who used to come to us and always preach to us about nonviolence, as if we really need somebody to preach to us on that. So, you have to be nonviolent. And then the same bishop, I hear him on German television saying that we need to send tanks to Ukraine because the Ukrainians are occupied by Russia. They have to defend themselves. I said, for heaven's sake, why that does not apply to Palestine? Why you don't support us? I mean, okay, if you don't want even to support us, why you keep supporting Israel with weapons for their genocidal project? This is something that makes actually the West complicit in this genocide. It's really not only Israel. It's this Western empire that supplies Israel with all of these weapons that are dropped on Gaza. 100 tons of weapons and chemicals were dropped into Gaza within this 1 year. This is more than the atomic bombs that were
dropped on Japan. In
Japan,
both
exactly.
of them. Yeah, it's more than both of them together.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it's such a tiny area too.
Exactly. It's the most densely populated area in the world, with 2.2 million people on a very small mass of land.
Yeah. So the question that the person who called but didn't stay online is this. What's the relation of Saudi Arabia to the Israeli government? And second question, which is very interesting in the way it is put, is the South African government providing any support to the Palestinian settlements? So I will leave it to you to respond to both and to comment on that particular word.
I mean, Saudi Arabia was ready maybe to have a peace deal with Israel, provided that Israel will accept a Palestinian state. And this is what they are still saying. In fact, 54 Arab and Muslim countries, including Iran, this is what they are saying. Now, but Israel doesn't want a two-state solution, and so this is actually what leads to many of these wars. Saudi Arabia provide support to the Palestinian Authority, but also humanitarian aid right now, for example, in Gaza. They support building of mosques in Palestine, etc. Palestinian settlement I think is a weird word, because we have Palestinian cities, we don't have settlements. Settlements is used, these are colonies, basically, Israeli colonies built in the West Bank. This is what we call settlements.
Yeah. Again, I think it tells us something about the way Americans are taught to think, right? That the places that have been inhabited for thousands of years are the settlements rather than the Israeli places that have been established, in the past 20 years, or maybe a little more than that. But anyway, right. So yeah, do you want to add to that?
No, the word settlement in American ears has a positive connotation. Mm-hmm. So these are actually colonies built on stolen Palestinian land.
Yeah, because you go and explore and discover new places, and then you settle in them.
Right. You don't discover them because they are there all the time.
Right.
They claim that they are discovering them.
Yeah, that's the language.
Exactly. They use biblical language. These are, biblical places, and they belong to us, meaning becoming private property of the settlers.
Yeah.
Of the Israeli settlers.
Yeah. So I want to get back to, you mentioned how Netanyahu used the biblical language of Amalek when the ground invasion into Gaza started. And it made me think about how he and Trump, they're so similar. Both of them are so corrupt. And so we know that. There's no question about who these people are and their corruption, and how they are far from, being, what you might think of when you think about the person of God, right? But Netanyahu used that biblical moment. Trump, I remember him standing with a Bible in his hand that was upside down. But he, of course, is doing it because his biggest supporters are fundamentalist Christians. And you talk a lot in the book about Zionist Christianity, which... Again, another interesting thing in your book is that you don't stop at fundamentalist Christians, which is something we know more and more about. But if you can talk about all of that.
Yeah, there are different kinds of Christian Zionism, different blends, if you want. One is the evangelical Christian Zionism that usually we talk about, but also there is the liberal Christian Zionism. This is the post-Holocaust theologians who are liberal on everything except on Palestine. When they start speaking about the state of Israel, they become fundamentalists. In the book, I tell the story of a German professor that I had was on panel with, and after we finished during the Q&A, he said, Pastor Raheb, if I were you, I will pack my luggage and leave the country because you are standing God in the way. This land belonged to the Jewish people. Who is this German and with what right is this German liberal professor. He was very much engaged in the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. He's a socialist in his thinking, but when it came to Palestine, he became fundamentalist. When I researched further, I saw that in his youth, he was serving in Nazi Germany. So now he wants basically to do an atonement on our back. We should pay the price for his sins that he did in the Holocaust, right? And so you have this blend of liberal Christian Zionists that even is more dangerous. And there is a third one, which is, I call it cultural Christian Zionism. This is when President Biden says, I am a Zionist. What does he mean with that? He doesn't connect that to his religiosity, because he's Catholic from background. But really he talks about a cultural kind of Zionism, if not to say an opportunist kind of Zionism.
So we have another caller for you. Hi, Moshe, you're on the line.
Hi, Chag Sameach. I have a question to the... are you a professor in Bethlehem?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question. And you are Christian by faith. So do you see a possibility for a Jewish state by the name of Israel living side by side with the Palestinian state once, let's say they agree to borders and everything? Do you see that as a possible solution, or are you a favor the Hamas solution, which really support Judenreich, like the Nazi, Israel clean of Jews? So can you tell me where does your heart lean?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can live with a two-state solution as long as the two states are really having enough territory for both peoples to be able to thrive and to share the land on equal basis, or on a one-state solution with equal rights for everyone, irrespective what religion or what ethnic background people might have. Right now, actually, it's the Israeli government that want to have the land Palestinian Rhine, which means without Palestinians. This is what we see happening as we speak right now in Gaza. So, this rhetoric doesn't help, because at the end of the day, it is very clear Israel, with all its military power over 100 years, they were not able to get rid of the Palestinians. The Palestinians were not able to get rid of the Israelis. So the only possibility is to share the land on equal footing, irrespective what kind of political solution. But what is not possible is for one group to keep oppressing, occupying, and destroying the livelihood of the other one.
Do you think two-state is a possibility, considering the way Israel has constructed itself inside the West Bank and made sure that the West Bank is divided from Gaza? If you want to tell our listeners what it looks like, and therefore, is it possible to make a Palestinian state?
I mean, it's very difficult. You are right, and many people think maybe it's too late for a two-state solution. The problem, it is also too early for a one-state solution, because the international community is stuck with this two-state solution. That is our big hurdle. However, I think, I mean, if you look at the West Bank, it looks very much like a piece of a Swiss cheese. Basically, Israel gets the cheese, controls the cheese, and the Palestinians are pushed in the holes. This is what's happening right now. With this concept, we cannot have a two-state solution. No way. Because this is a settler colonial project, exactly like with the native reservations. However, if there is a will, a two-state solution could work. And for me, a two-state solution is important for another reason. From South Africa, we learned that even after apartheid was dismantled, the black were able to vote, to have their political rights. They did not get access to the land or to the economy. So there is still an apartheid system in South Africa because the white, they control the land, not the black. The black are still living in their Bantustans. And the economy is still run by white people. Yeah. And so it is important, I think, for a Palestinian state to be able to control land, because otherwise, even in a future one-state solution, if the Israeli will control 95% of the land and the Palestinians have maybe the right to vote, but they are pushed in reservations, this is not also the best case scenario.
Yeah. So Moshe said that Hamas's ideology is Juden rice, right? Jews out of here. He was using the Nazi language. And of course, this is used by Israel, the United States, and so on and so forth as a reason why it's not a war, it's an attack, right? It's a genocide on the Palestinians must continue. But I wonder, is that actually a thought that is common among Palestinians? It seems to me like I hear mostly what I hear from you, that, there is a recognition that Israel is there and is not going anywhere. And what we need is a solution.
Right. I mean, Hamas in the last decade or so was saying that they accept a two-state solution. And they asked President Abu Mazen to actually lead the negotiations in this direction. So they did not recognize Israel officially because Israel has no borders yet. Nobody knows what actually are we recognizing. I mean, are we recognizing Israel from the sea to the river? Are we recognizing Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates? Are we recognizing? Israel has no borders up to this moment, and so recognizing Israel, and so this whole talk about Israel right to defend itself without border is very problematic. The attack that happened on October 7th actually happened on land that was taken by Israel after 1967. It wasn't even on Israel proper land. Nobody talks about that. And so, but I think Moshe wanted, to repeat some of this propaganda that is used, to defend Israel and to demonize the others. This has been done always, by Western country. I mean, we had it with Saddam Hussein. He was demonized, with a smoking gun, etc. And now the situation there is worse than it was. Because the idea was to destroy the country. It was not to get rid of Saddam. With Hamas, the same thing, that you demonize a group called Hamas with the aim of destroying, making life there unlivable. In Hezbollah, the same thing. You demonize Hezbollah, and this gives you the green light to really to shave the land there, to bomb it.
Yeah.
We have to be very careful by this whole language of demonizing people. And I guess, Jewish people themselves who were demonized for centuries should be careful by demonizing others, because now they have the power and they can do that. But, history might flip, and we need to combat all different kinds of racist language, racist theologies. If we really want to have peace, want to have justice, we should be very, very careful with the language we use.
Well, and an interesting thing about that is that fundamentalist Christianity supports Israel not because they love the Jews or any such thing, but because that's part of their theology, that what I think of as probably a nuclear war will start there, destroy all the Jews, and then Christ will come a second time and they will ascend with him to heaven. Right. That's not a loving concept.
No. These evangelical Christian Zionists are the most actually anti-Semite.
Yeah.
Because they want to send all the Jews to Palestine so that there 2/3 of them will be killed and the last third will convert to Christianity. So basically, they are calling for the annihilation of the Jewish people. I mean, this is anti-Semitism. However, Netanyahu, loved to wine and dine with them, to share bed with them, because they fulfill his desires for a greater Israel. They give him money. They give him all the support in Congress. They give him all the support he needs. And so he has no problem with their anti-Semitism. This is, I think, short-sightedness, though he thinks this is maybe opportunist time. Let's use them as they are using us. This is not my way of doing things.
Yeah. Well, the Reverend Professor Mitri Raheb, we never got to talk about your university, but the one in Gaza is destroyed, I understand. Which is one sad thing among so many other sad things. I again really appreciate you joining us today, and I would like to encourage our listeners to read your latest book, Decolonizing Palestine, The Land, the People, the Bible. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Have a good day.
And we'll talk again sometime, I hope.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And thanks to Summer, Jade, Shali, Lainey. I'm STD Noor. We'll be talking again next week. Bye-bye.
With information that will never be reported. Disregard the mainstream. Media distorted. We come and listen.